Turned down a movie because I didn't want to get the motherfucking jab. You know, turned down $9 million.
Damn.
Because I didn't want to get the jab.
I did think, part of me thought, maybe this being an openly Republican guy in Hollywood, it might have something to do with it.
One person said, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anybody do.
Of all the issues that you feel like Christians should be thinking about,
They want you scared. They want you quiet. They want you thinking you're alone. That's what Gina Carano said right after Disney fired her. But instead of disappearing, she got louder. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down. The Hollywood elite thought they could make examples out of these celebrities. Instead, these celebrities made examples out of them. And now I'm going to show you the exact moments where everything changed. You think $9 million would be enough to make anyone bend. But Ice Cube? He doesn't bend for anyone. When a major studio came knocking with a fat check and a starring role in their next big comedy, they thought they had him. Just sign here, show up on set, and oh yeah, there's just this one tiny thing about getting vaccinated. The studio suits tried to play it cool at first. Just standard insurance requirements, they said. Nothing personal. Everyone else is doing it. But Ice Cube saw right through that. This wasn't about insurance. This was about control.
Turned down a movie because I didn't want to get the motherfucking jab. You know, turned down $9 million.
Damn.
Because I didn't want to get the jab.
I
I didn't turn it down. Didn't give it to me because I wouldn't get the shot.
Exactly.
So I didn't turn it down. A lot of things up my sleeve.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Damn, turned out $9 million.
And if there's one thing Ice Cube's been fighting his whole career, it's people telling him what to do with his own body. $9 million. Plus back-end points on the movie's profits. The kind of payday most actors would kill for. The pressure started mounting. His agents were probably blowing up his phone. The executives were probably making all kinds of promises, trying to sweeten the deal. But Ice Cube didn't budge. Here's what people don't get about standing up for what you believe in. It costs you. Real money. Real opportunities. Not just Twitter followers or likes. We're talking life-changing amounts of cash that could set up generations of your family. But Ice Cube didn't even hesitate. I didn't want to get the jab, $9 million gone. That's all he said about it. No long explanations, no dramatic speeches. Just the cold, hard truth. They tried to make him choose between his principles and his paycheck. And he chose his principles.
Bro,
Is it really? You think so?
It is. They on some but you know what I mean? Me too. I'm on some shit.
But you know what? It ain't just Hollywood no more, though. You can go through the streaming.
The studio didn't give him the role. They didn't negotiate. They didn't try to find another way. They just moved on to someone more willing to play by their rules. And Ice Cube let that $9 million walk away. But here's the thing. Ice Cube wasn't alone. All across Hollywood, the same scene was playing out behind closed doors. Big stars, small stars, crew members. Everyone was getting the same ultimatum. Get the shot, or get out. Most of them stayed quiet about it. Some of them gave in. But a few decided to follow Ice Cube's lead and take a stand. And speaking of taking stands, wait until you hear what happened when Kelsey Grammer walked into what he thought was just another routine interview about the Frasier reboot. Because sometimes the price isn't measured in dollars. Sometimes it's measured in decades of being treated like an outsider in your own industry. They say Hollywood loves a good ambush scene, but usually those stay on the screen. What happened when America's favorite radio psychiatrist sat down for a simple promotional interview shows exactly how the entertainment industry treats anyone who steps out of line. After playing Dr. Frasier Crane for 30 years, you'd think Kelsey Grammer would know what to expect in a promotional interview. Talk about the show, share some memories, maybe tease what's coming next in the reboot. Simple stuff. But Hollywood had different plans that day. The interview started normally enough. The usual questions about returning to the role, working with the new cast, all that. But then came the shift. The interviewer's tone changed, and suddenly they weren't talking about Frasier anymore. They were talking about Donald Trump. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't smooth.
I did think, part of me thought, maybe this being an openly Republican guy in Hollywood, it might have something to do with it.
It was an ambush, plain and simple. See, Kelsey Grammer's been dealing with this kind of treatment for decades. In an industry that prides itself on tolerance, he's learned firsthand how quickly that tolerance disappears when you don't follow the approved script. "There is a hallmark of tolerance in my community out there," he once said. But that tolerance has limits. Express the wrong opinion, support the wrong candidate, and suddenly you're on the outside looking in. The pressure to conform in Hollywood is real. It's not just about what you say in interviews. It's about what parties you get invited to, what roles you're considered for, how people treat you on set. For years, Grammars watched colleagues whisper, seen opportunities disappear, felt the cold shoulder from an industry that claims to celebrate diversity, just not diversity of thought. But Grammer didn't play along with their game. When the interviewer tried to corner him about his political beliefs, he didn't dodge. He didn't make excuses. He didn't try to change the subject. Instead, he looked them right in the eye and said those career-killing words, "I am a Trump supporter." The interview ended right there. Cut. Done. No more questions about Frazier. No more friendly chat about the good old days.
At least you were a Trump supporter. I'm fascinated to know if you still are.
I am.
I mean, I do know that there's a hallmark of tolerance in my community out there.
Just another conservative actor being shown exactly what happens when you don't toe the party line in Hollywood. But something's changing in Hollywood. The same tactics that used to silence people aren't working anymore. Just ask Gina Carano. She found out exactly what happens when you refuse to back down, even when Disney itself comes after you. And trust me, that story, that's where things really start getting intense. When The Mandalorian first hit Disney+, everyone thought they knew how this story would go. Popular show, beloved character, massive success. But behind the scenes, Disney executives were already having secret meetings about their biggest star. They weren't discussing her next big storyline. They were debating how to handle a problem that was about to cost them millions. Gina Carano's Cara Dune wasn't just another character on The Mandalorian. She was a phenomenon. Viewership numbers shot through the roof whenever she appeared on screen. Fans couldn't get enough of the former MMA fighter turned actress. Disney saw dollar signs and they had big plans. We're talking merchandise, action figures, and the crown jewel, her own spin-off series that would have made her one of the biggest names in the Star Wars universe. But there was just one small problem. Gina wouldn't play by Hollywood's rules. While Disney executives were counting their future profits, they were also watching her social media accounts with growing concern. Every post became a source of debate in Disney's corporate offices. Should they say something? Should they wait it out? How much control should they have over what their stars say online? The pressure started building from all sides. Activist groups weren't just complaining anymore. They were organizing campaigns. Entertainment journalists who'd praised her performance just months earlier were now writing hit pieces. Disney executives who'd been planning her character's future were now planning damage control meetings. Here's what most people don't know. Disney knew exactly how much money they stood to lose. They had the projections, the merchandise plans, the subscription estimates for her spin-off series. We're talking millions in revenue, all riding on one actress and her refusal to self-censor. Then came the post that changed everything. The one that Disney executives had been dreading. The one that would force them to make a choice between their biggest new star and the mounting pressure to silence her. They didn't hesitate. Within hours, Gina Carano was fired. The spin-off series, canceled. The merchandise, pulled. The millions in projected revenue, gone. But something unexpected happened after Disney dropped that hammer. Instead of disappearing into Hollywood exile, Carano found herself at the center of a growing movement. Other celebrities started speaking up, seeing in her story a reflection of their own battles with an industry that demands conformity. And that's when things really started to get interesting. Because it turns out Gina Carano wasn't alone. Across Hollywood, other stars were facing the same ultimatums, the same pressure to stay quiet, the same threats to their careers. And one by one, they started deciding enough was enough. Remember when Hollywood celebrities used to keep their opinions to themselves? That changed fast when a wave of stars decided their principles mattered more than their next paycheck. The industry's power players weren't ready for what happened when these celebrities stopped playing by the rules. Tim Allen learned it first. His show Last Man Standing was crushing the ratings, giving audiences exactly what they wanted, but apparently that wasn't enough. When ABC pulled the plug after 6 successful seasons, everyone knew why. And it had nothing to do with the numbers. It had everything to do with Allen's refusal to hide his conservative views. But instead of crushing dissent, These moves started sparking something bigger.
Republicans, yeah, I went to the inauguration. It was
I'm not attacking
you. You get in this town. I'm not kidding. If you're not part of the group, you know what we believe is right. I go, well, I might have a problem with it. You got to be real careful around here. You know, you get beat up. If you don't believe what everybody believes, this is like 30s Germany. I don't know.
Patricia Heaton stepped into the spotlight, openly championing pro-life views in an industry where that's practically career suicide.
Path, it is so different from what I notice in Hollywood. You're a lifelong Catholic.
Our Savior's biological family, the Jewish people, are being murdered. We need to stand. One person said, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anybody do.
Of all the issues that you feel like Christians should be thinking about, how did your faith impact your career?
I went to the showrunner and I said, I just need to tell you I'm pro-life.
Rob Schneider started calling out how political correctness was killing creativity in Hollywood. These weren't just random complaints. They were direct challenges to an industry that demanded conformity. Matthew McConaughey took a different approach. Instead of picking sides, he started pointing out how ridiculous the whole game had become. He called for actual conversations instead of cancellations, real dialogue instead of demands. And something interesting happened. Fans started rallying behind these voices of resistance. Joe Rogan turned his podcast into a platform where canceled celebrities could tell their side of the story. Every time Hollywood tried to silence someone, they found a new audience waiting to hear what they really had to say. Dave Chappelle and J.K. Rowling faced intense criticism for their views, but instead of apologizing, they doubled down, and their fan bases grew stronger. The industry's old playbook stopped working. Threaten someone's career? Their fans would support them even more. Try to shame them into silence? They'd just speak louder. Cancel their projects? They'd find new ways to reach their audience. Every attempt to force compliance just added fuel to the resistance. What started with individual acts of defiance turned into something bigger. Celebrities began defending each other publicly, sharing their own stories of pressure and ultimatums. The same tactics that used to silence dissent were now exposing Hollywood's attempts at control. And with each new voice that joined the chorus, the movement grew stronger. The message became clear. Hollywood's power to destroy careers only worked if everyone stayed scared and isolated. But when celebrities started standing together, that power started crumbling. And the executives who thought they could control the narrative, they were about to learn just how wrong they'd been. You know what happens when you try to silence people? They get louder. When Hollywood thought they could control every word, every post, every opinion, they created something they couldn't control, a movement. Not just of celebrities, but of everyone who's tired of being told what to think. These stars risked everything. Millions in movie deals, decades-long careers, their entire futures in the industry. But they showed us something important. You're not alone when you stand up for what you believe in. In fact, you might just find yourself surrounded by more support than you ever imagined. And that's what terrifies Hollywood more than anything. The moment people stop being afraid and start standing together,